Okay, it looks like we're right at 1 o'clock, so we will go ahead and jump in and get started. Uh, to those of you who have never hopped on a Zoom webinar / Q&A session like this before, we're so glad to have you. Just a couple of things to make note of. If you can, it would be great if you could turn on your video screen just so that way we can see one another when we're speaking. You can also turn off your microphone when you're not speaking and then turn it on when you're addressing the presenter. And if you, for any reason, are unable to use the microphone, there is a chat feature that will probably be at the bottom of your screen. So those are just a couple of things that you can keep in mind as we go through this presentation. My name is Rachel Snyder. I'm the Career Development for our College of Business. And I'm just going to give a brief introduction to our presenter today, and then we will get started. We are here today with Jade from Enterprise, and I will turn it on over to her.
Great. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you to all of you for welcoming me to join your call today. I'll just give you a little bit of background on myself. I am the Group Talent Acquisition Manager for Enterprise Holdings. So we are Enterprise Rent-A-Car, National Car Rental, Alamo Rent-A-Car. We have a truck division, a car sales division, and a fleet management division. So I am currently headquartered here in the DFW area, but I did begin my career 15 years ago with the company in Orlando, and then moved for promotions to Raleigh, North Carolina, our market there in North Carolina, and then to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and now have been here with the company since January here in the Dallas area. So me and my team of recruiters are responsible for hiring. We hire between 500 and 700 new employees here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, average per year. And so we connect with students and all kinds of folks in our community so that we can offer great career opportunities. So I'm excited to share some recruiting tips, hiring tips, interview tips, whatever it is that you're looking to gain today.
Great, thanks so much, Jade. Since I think we may still have some people hopping on and hopping in late, would you just get us started talking a little bit about what the market looks like right now for Enterprise? I know most people are primarily concerned with what's going on with the COVID-19 outbreak.
Sure. I think we're all concerned, right? As we all talk to each other from our homes today. Yes, it's been quite a roller coaster, I think, for all humans over the last month. Our company specifically has been heavily impacted, as you can imagine. We are in the transportation industry, and for the most part, people are staying home, so they're not traveling. So our business specifically has been heavily impacted. If you think of Enterprise, oftentimes people think of us that they only use a rental car when they go on vacation, and that is certainly one of our markets is kind of the leisure use. But really, we have three prongs to our rental divisions. One is certainly leisure, people using rental cars when they travel. Which hasn't been happening, obviously, over the last 30 to 45 days. Another prong is our corporate travel department. So people that are having to travel for work purposes would fly into a different market and then pick up a rental car to go to meetings or visit accounts or whatever it is that they were doing. And that has all but come to a stop. And then the third prong of our business is our replacement division. That's really how we started as a company. So, if someone is involved in a car accident or their car has to be taken to the dealership for maintenance work, we typically will provide a replacement vehicle because we have national partnerships with State Farm, Allstate, all nationwide, all of the large insurance carriers, as well as body shops and dealerships. So because people haven't been using their cars and leaving their homes, they certainly haven't been getting into accidents and not really needing maintenance on their vehicles. So they haven't really been needing rental cars for that reason either. So we've seen a very steep decline in the business in the last month. However, as these stay-at-home orders start to get released, obviously people will be back in their cars, hopefully traveling again for leisure and business use. So we do anticipate a pretty steady incline throughout the next 12 months. And then we hope to be back to normal within the year.
Great, that's really good to hear. So most of our students that are hopping on will be in our College of Business Administration, which encompasses kind of a lot of the areas, including marketing, computer information systems, a lot of different management areas, accounting, finance, economics, you name it, we've got it. And so of these students, if any of them are currently looking for jobs and are maybe interested in enterprise, are there specific majors that you take once you're back in the hiring game, or do they need to be looking somewhere else? What can they do here with enterprise?
Sure, that's a good question. Well, first I can say we do not necessarily hire anyone based on their major. I was a business management major, but not everybody at Enterprise is. We hire predominantly into our management training program. So 99% of our full-time employees at Enterprise on all levels, including our CEO, we all started as management trainees on the front lines of our business, working in a local rental branch, and really just learning the business from the ground up. And so, yes, if you have studied management, you probably have an interest in leading others, in making decisions and problem solving, taking initiative, being creative, analyzing, statistics and finances, marketing, all those things kind of are encompassed into our management training program. So yes, that is what we hire for. So last year in Dallas Fort Worth, we hired about 200 management trainees. A lot of them were Tarleton students. And we have a lot of Tarleton alumni in various levels of management with us here locally and across the country. So yes, we do. We hire into our management training program. We're not currently, we are on a little bit of a lull as we continue to watch the business stabilize over the next month. But I would assume by the end of the summer, we will be hiring again. And that will be directly into our management training program, which does require the completion of a bachelor's degree, or potentially into an internship. So typically we have a summer internship, because of the business this summer looking a little bit different than it has before. We've postponed the internship, so we hope to offer it in the fall part-time, for students who are still enrolled in school, and then again in the spring, so that folks who have a heavy course load in the fall can maybe wiggle it in the spring, or vice versa. So those are the two predominant opportunities, but we hire for tons of different roles. As you can imagine, in a car company, we need lots of people to drive our cars and move them from one location to another. We need service agents who detail our vehicles. So we have lots of folks that are in school and looking for part-time jobs. We have branches out near the Tarleton campus where we've got a lot of college folks that work in all different types of part-time roles, with the intention of coming on as a management trainee when they graduate.
Great, thank you so much. And students, if you want to, whenever you want to chime in, if you have a question, you can just unmute your mic and ask it. And again, if you are unable to ask a question because you can't use your microphone, you can type it into the chat and I will ask it for you. So we are going to open it up for questions.
Jade, I have a question. So can you give us some tips on what you look for when interviewing, and if it's done virtually, or what your process is for the interviews?
Sure, absolutely. So I can tell you what our historical process looked like, and as lots of employers, we're probably going to be making some tweaks to our process. So originally and historically, our interview process has been 4 parts. So the first is connecting by phone. Either that's because we have found your resume on LinkedIn or Indeed and we're reaching out to you, or maybe we've met you at a career fair and we're following up with a phone call to speak to you following that career fair. Maybe we've met with you at an on-campus event at Tarleton through career services, through the School of Business. And so oftentimes that's the first phone call. Otherwise, maybe you've just applied online organically and we're just calling you because we've received your application. So first contact's always by phone, and we can certainly talk more about phone etiquette if we want to go there. Second interview is always face-to-face with us. Now, oftentimes that is physically with us in our office. However, with the changes of the world, I think we're probably going to see that first step being more virtual, and we can certainly talk more about that if we want to. Our third step is going to one of our branches where the candidate would probably be working to meet with the team at that branch and then interview with the hiring area manager at that time. And then the final step, at least for our management training program, is to meet back at our regional office with a regional vice president who is an officer of our company, and they make the final hiring decision. So at that point, we extend offers and then start our background check process. So like I said before, I do envision certain steps will probably go virtual, which is great. I mean, that can speed up the process for both ends. But I think we will always maintain that middle piece where you go to a branch, you meet with our team and meet with an area manager, because we're in the people business and we are all about hiring people who want a long-term career with us, who have the ability to be strong leaders. And to be a strong leader in any company, you have to be able to connect. And so we need to be able to see individuals in our interview process connecting with our team, connecting, one-on-one with our area manager, to ensure that they want a long-term stake in the business and that our area manager can foresee that they'd have long-term success in a leadership role with us.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, while our students think of some questions for you, I would love to hear more about those virtual interview tips. We're getting a lot of questions from students about what they should be doing virtually.
Sure. Yeah, I can tell you firsthand, like I said before, the last market I came from was Milwaukee. And so when I was up in Milwaukee, we didn't necessarily have the condensed infrastructure that we have here in DFW. So I was hiring for the whole state of Wisconsin. So some of my branches were 5 or 6 hours away from me. And so I didn't think it made a whole lot of sense to make a candidate drive 5 hours down to Milwaukee for a 1-hour interview and then 5 hours back. So I started doing virtual interviews up there years ago. And, always offered it more to help save the gas money for the candidate, more than anything else. But what I did find, and what we have now found as a company as we've continued to use more virtual platforms as interviewing, is oftentimes it is not as personal, right? We don't get to shake the hand. We don't get to kind of see the whole package and make that kind of physical connection that you can when you're face to face with someone in a room. And so when you miss that piece, that first portion of an interview where you sit down and did you make it okay? Did you find parking? How's the weather? You miss that kind of piece. And so virtual interviews can be a little bit more awkward, because you kind of log in and you're like, okay, let's go, right? I mean, there isn't much to kind of jelly bean about, right? So I would definitely encourage students to try to continue to connect. And so that might require connecting virtually prior to the interview, like try to reach out and connect on LinkedIn prior to the interview if you haven't already, because that will help you learn something about that individual that you're going to interview with, where they went to school, maybe other companies that they've worked for, how long they've been in their company, other positions they've held in their company, because that can kind of help you break the ice in the beginning. To say, oh, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for offering me this next step in the interview process. I understand that, you're also a Tarleton grad and that's so great. Tell me what you studied when you went to school there, or, you can kind of connect on that level, or you can say, oh, I understand you started in the management training program. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience? And you don't necessarily have to wait till the end of the interview to ask a question like that, because that's just kind of breaking the ice and helping you kind of get on the same page with the person you're interviewing with. So that's my first tip. Second tip is you still have to look great. And, I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, it's virtual. This is more laid back, either roll out of bed, don't do the hair, or, don't have professional makeup or jewelry or whatnot. But, you still need to kind of mirror that company, right? And so at Enterprise, we are business casual. So our gentlemen are really in a dress shirt and a jacket every day. We just recently went away from ties for the first time in 62 years. So our gentlemen don't have to wear ties anymore. But for our interview process, we expect someone to mirror our culture. And so to wear that dress shirt and that jacket cleanly pressed, you really want to look the part. You really want to interview for the job you want, not the job you have, right? We say that all the time. So definitely dress for success. And then also, you definitely want to take into consideration where it is that you are when you're interviewing. Obviously, if you live in an apartment or you live at home or wherever you live, you might have a roommate or a family member or a cat or someone else that might want to make an appearance while you're interviewing. So make sure you're in a private, quiet, safe space. Maybe put a post-it note on the door, do not disturb in an interview, right? Because I can't tell you all the crazy things. We've had, candidates whose literal roommate was starting like a rock band tryout in the room next to them, and that you can't hear anything, or, literally a cat flying across the screen, or, so just consider your environment. Certainly. And then obviously think about your background. Like if you've got posters in the background or, other things that just either might be a distraction for the person that is interviewing you, and or a reason for them to have anything other than positive thoughts of you after the interview. And then my last tip for you virtually is always, always, always ask questions at the end. We always say, our face-to-face interviews at Enterprise typically take about 45 minutes, and our virtual interviews take about 20. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Usually the longer you're talking to someone interviewing you, the better it's going. And so, I know virtually, again, is a little bit awkward. And so when a recruiter or a hiring manager says, do you have any questions? Don't take the bait. Don't be like, no, I'm good. Thanks. Have a great day. You still want to ask those thoughtful questions that are going to help you really seal the deal at the end of the interview, regardless of whether it's virtual or in person. So, still have one or two really thoughtful questions, either about the position, about, what is going to be determined as success in the position, how long you expect to be in the position before you'd be eligible for a leadership role. Again, you can ask about the individual you're interviewing with, the culture of the business. Obviously, there's a lot changing in the world. So, how the pandemic has affected the company, future plans. All those are great questions that we expect to be asked. And we want to be asked. It shows that you have interest. It shows you want to connect, you want to learn more. And then make sure after you've asked your questions and we say, do you have any more questions? If you don't, that you say, I don't have any more questions, but I appreciate your time. And, after speaking to you, I'm even more excited about this opportunity. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what the next steps of the process will be. To make sure that when I get off the phone with you, that I know you definitely want this, that you definitely are interested in the position. I can tell you if I interview 10 people in a day, only one usually does that. And that one is always going to get an interview to the next step, because I am very encouraged to know that that person wants a place on my team. It's not just me wanting them on my team.
Great. Those are some fantastic tips. Thank you so much. We've got a couple of questions rolling into the comments, so I'll just read the first one off. Are there specific skills that you are going to look for to stand out on a resume, especially during COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can tell you that, what maybe a month ago employers were concerned when you had gaps of employment, that is not probably going to be so much a thing anymore. So I think that things that you can be doing in the meantime will absolutely help you set yourself apart from peers in an interview process. Number one, if there are additional certifications that you can be getting, even if it's online, like getting a certification in Microsoft products, those are offered. That's something else you can add to your resume. And it's also something that you can talk about how you're being productive in this time period. If there's additional projects that you can take on at school, if there's a leadership role in a project at school, taking part in different types of opportunities that career services offers, taking the time to meet with professors. And this is a great opportunity to build your network. And so through career services, through professors, through professional mentors that you might have, saying, hey, do you know anyone in this industry or in this company that you can virtually connect me with? This is the time to do that, because number one, recruiters are not busy right now. Most of us aren't actively hiring right now in April. Hopefully we'll start in May and June, but we're not right now. So if you reach out to me right now, literally, you can email me tomorrow and be like, hey, do you mind doing a mock virtual interview with me? I'd be like, sure, yeah, I can do it at 9:30, no problem. So this is the time to start kind of really building your toolkit, right? So doing a lot of those mock interviews, get as many resume critiques as you possibly can. If there's some volunteer organization that you're involved with, this is the time to volunteer, whether it's with church or in your community or with a student organization that you're involved with on campus. These are times to, connect with your sorority or your fraternity or, a business organization or anybody else on campus, because that's what will define you in the process when we say, what have you been doing for the last month? If you can give us one or two really good examples of how you've either professionally developed yourself or personally developed yourself, that will go a long way for an employer that's looking for someone who wants to take initiative and wants to make a change and an impact in my business.
Great. That's really helpful. Thank you. What advice would you give to someone that is scheduled to do a branch visit?
Great question. I love that question. We give lots of tips when you're in our interview process, but I will happily share those with you now, because whether you take part in that process with Enterprise or another company, I can absolutely give you pass-fail tips. So first and foremost is to get out there and talk to the team. Like, we have you there to talk to the team on purpose because we want to see how you engage. And I can tell you, usually 10 to 20% hardly say anything at all because they feel super uncomfortable and potentially a little bit awkward, and they don't quite know what to say, even though we give them some icebreakers. And so for us, that really says a lot, because our business is changing constantly. We're asking you to work in all different types of environments with all different types of customers. And so we need someone who's really adaptable and really flexible. And so if they come into that type of a situation and they're uncomfortable, then it probably won't work long term. But when you have the opportunity to meet with a team, you have to take that opportunity to ask as many questions as you possibly can. So we share about 8 to 10 questions with our candidates to ask, like I said, to break the ice. So what's a typical day? What time do you usually arrive? What time do you usually go home? What's the most common challenge that you face in a normal day working at this branch? How long have you worked here? Is it what you expected when you interviewed for the position? How is it different than what you expected? And, what are your future career goals? What were they before you started with the company? And now that you've come in and you've worked for a few months or a few years with the company, now what are your goals? And what are you going to need to do to attain those goals? I think those are some great questions to ask. You really want to kind of take in the environment. For us, we work long days. We really do, because we're teaching you how to help lead and manage our business. So you might work anywhere from 9 to 10 hours a day. I need you to really feel comfortable in the work environment, feel like it's somewhere that you want to spend your days. And the team, is it a team of people that you feel would be encouraging and motivating, that you end up becoming lifelong friends with? Really, that's our culture at Enterprise. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable and you feel like you can be successful. Because at the end of the day, if you come in and you're like, these people are awesome and this is so much fun, but as we show you our performance matrix and some of the things that you'll be held accountable for, if you're a little intimidated by that, or you don't feel like you'd be successful, then again, we want to know that ahead of time. We certainly don't want to offer a role to someone who is in any way, shape, or form, nervous about it. We want you to be all in, because if we offer you the job, then we're all in.
Thanks so much. All right,
Yeah.
I will go to the next question. I'm just skimming through. We have several. What skills, abilities, and attributes are essential to succeed in the management trainee program?
Sure, great question. So we have 6 core competencies at Enterprise. And really it's, from day one in our management training program all the way up through our general manager who's, just celebrated 35 years with the company. I think it's true in any position within our organization. First, customer service is our way of life. That is one of our founding values. It is literally what we eat, sleep, and breathe every single day. So if you put the customer first, we always say the customer's always right, but if you truly have the ambition to exceed customer expectations, then we want you on our team. That is highly important to what we do every single day. Second is leadership. We are not hiring sales associates. Yes, you will work on the front lines in order to learn how to work on the front lines, because we then need you to teach, train, and develop the people working on the front lines as you become managers. So we need someone who has the ambition and the ability to lead a team of people. So leadership's number 2. Number 3 is communication. You cannot have number 1 and number 2 without really strong communication skills, verbal, written, and otherwise. We need you to be able to communicate and connect with all different types of people, different team members, managers, customers, accounts that you're helping to support. Work ethic. Again, like I said, what we do is not easy. It's certainly not rocket science. We're just renting cars, but it does take a high level of work ethic, because we're dealing with technological creatures in cars that sometimes don't necessarily work to our favor. And so you have to be a problem solver. You absolutely have to thrive on getting a phone call at 7:30 in the morning from one of your biggest accounts saying, I need 4 white pickup trucks. And you look out on your lot and you don't have any. But you're going to come through for that account, and being able to say, okay, I'm going to call the branches around me. I'm going to call the airport. I'm going to call our drive team. I'm going to figure out logistically how to get them all over here and delivered, and then to deliver to that account and have them be like, man, you just made our day. That we need people who are like that. Flexibility, I had kind of already mentioned it before. We need people who are highly flexible and adaptable. As you saw, you certainly don't have to move for the company, but my family and I have moved 3 times across the country for opportunity. And certainly the more open you are to being mobile, that just opens tons more doors for you. And then being flexible to different positions. I was in our rental operations for 6 years. I never in a million years thought I'd be a recruiter. But someone came to me and said, hey, we think you have a skill set that would be great here. So would you consider it? And again, I am flexible, I am adaptable, and I do trust my mentors. So when they steered me in that direction, here I am. And then the last but not least is persuasiveness. It does require you to sell. We sell every day. Again, as you move into leadership, it's not necessarily that you're selling a customer an upgrade anymore. It's more selling an idea or a new process or a new procedure to your team, or to an account. There's times we have to go to an account and say, I know we've been delivering cars onto your property, but now for liability reasons, we really need to pick your customers up and bring them to our property. That requires a certain level of persuasive ability that we really need you to have in order to be successful with us.
Awesome. And I see that we've had some new students hop in. So if y'all want to submit any questions, you can just ask them out loud. You can interrupt me, I don't mind. Or you can put them into the chat box, which if you're watching on your phone should be at the bottom of your screen. If you're on your computer, should also be at the bottom of your screen. All right, our next question is there any specific area of research that a candidate should learn before coming into an interview, specifically about the history of the company?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that, a lot of that information can be found on the company's website, typically, in the About Us section, right? Or you can kind of read their mission statement, the history of the organization. But for us, truly, we're not in a position to try to screen people out of our interview process. We are looking to get people into our interview process. And I think that's true of most companies and most recruiters nowadays. So I'm not going to give you like a pop quiz on what year we were founded and, the name of our founder and what city our headquarters is in. If you know those things and you can kind of weave them into the interview, you certainly get bonus points. I love when people come in and they're like, so, I understand Jack Taylor founded your company and, he was in the Navy and that's where you got your name, the USS Enterprise. How do you continue to engage with veterans? Man, that's awesome. That's a great question to ask me, right? So those, if you know a little bit about the history of the company and you can weave it into some of your questions or into some of your answers, because we are a very, very patriotic organization, and we do pride ourselves on the amount of veterans we hire and engage in our workforce. So knowing that, whether you are one or aren't one, if you talk about, or ask questions about that, or, talk about how you've been you've volunteered with an organization. If I ask you a leadership question, you're like, oh, I volunteer with a veteran organization on my campus, or, my parent was in the armed services, so I had to move around a lot. That's what made me really adaptable. If you can say things like that in the interview, that helps, right? It helps me and you connect. It helps me understand that you would appreciate that aspect of our culture, and that you'd fit right in to who we are. So certainly knowing those things are important, but I'd say equally important are knowing kind of the today of the company, and you can find that on Glassdoor. So, if you go onto Glassdoor and you read about an organization, yes, there are certainly numerical values that give us all different types of ratings. I would tell you to take those with a grain of salt, because oftentimes the people filling those out are, just like if you go to a restaurant, you might not tell them you had a great experience, but if you have a bad one, you usually tell them. So Glassdoor can capture a little bit of that, but if you read what people are typing, if you read the actual reviews, that can be really helpful for you. So if you read enterprises, you're going to read that we wash cars, which is true. We certainly do. That's our product. If you work at Torchy's, you make tacos. If you work at Enterprise, you wash cars. So that is what we do, and that we work long hours. And depending on when you've read that review, we've gone over the last few years from an average of 51 hours a week to 50 hours a week to 49 hours a week to 47 hours a week. And we're almost at 46 hours a week now. So, again, like I said, take it with a grain of salt, but if those are things that are really, really important to you, it's valuable for you to know that information so that you can at least ask those questions in an interview process, or it might even help you determine whether or not to apply with a company at all.
Great. These are great questions. We've got a couple more. Let me look at which one's next. All right, what does the career path look like for the management trainee position specifically?
Sure, great question. So like I said before, our management training program is really the front lines of our business. So if you have ever gone into one of our rental branches, you were probably assisted by a management trainee. So that is someone who has a bachelor's degree and 6 months of some kind of a leadership or organizational or sales or customer service experience in order to get on the team, plus the 6 core competencies that we talked about. And so that individual is learning how to run the branch. So as a management trainee, like I said, you're working 47, 48 hours a week at an assigned location. You have an assistant manager, you have a branch manager, usually a team of several management trainees. And day to day, like I said, you're the front line. So about 70% of your day is going to be customer service or sales. You're helping the customers as they rent cars, return cars, make reservations, switch out vehicles, get billing set up through an insurance company or dealership. But the other 30% of your day is going to be different every day. We might have some crazy logistical challenge like delivering those pickup trucks to an account. And so you're going to learn by watching your managers how to handle situations like that. We might have a situation where a customer doesn't return a car. And so they're behind on their bills, and you can watch the processes that we have to take in those situations. You might have a situation where a pressure washer goes off in the back and we can't wash our cars anymore, and how do we kind of work through that situation? So day to day, you are learning what it takes to help run an operation. So average length of time of the program is about 6 to 12 months. It's a combination of you and your personal sales performance and customer service performance, as well as team goals that you're working on as a branch. And then you're stack ranked on a matrix, and your ability to kind of outcompete your teammates and perform high on that matrix will determine how quickly you can sit for our management qualification interview. Once you pass that interview, then you are eligible to start interviewing for assistant manager positions. And then from there, your performance as a team, not as an individual, will determine when you're ready to start interviewing for branch manager positions. And then you are running your own brick and mortar store. So average length of time to branch manager is about 18 months. So it's pretty quick. And we are looking, again, for top performers who can come in, showcase their ability by, impacting customers and then impacting their team. And then from branch manager, you can do any one of a plethora of things in our company. We do not outsource anything. So our accounting, our HR, our operations, our marketing, all of those positions are filled by branch managers typically. And so the short-term goal is to get to branch manager within 18 months to 2 years. And then from there, kind of figuring out what your niche and your passion is within the business. And then you can move into any one of those other career paths.
Great. And this question actually kind of follows along well with that last one. Do you need sales experience specifically?
You do not necessarily need sales experience. It's a management training program, so we fully intend to teach you what you need to know to be successful in the position. And I think, I think people get hung up on the term sales experience and think they had to like sell vacuum cleaners door to door for that to qualify as sales experience. But, honestly, I just said Torchies before because I love Torchies. So sorry if it's offending anybody that's a Fuzzies fan. But, if you work at Torchies, that's sales. They upgrade me into queso and a drink every time I go. Or if you've worked in any kind of retail, like one of my other favorites, Target. Every time I check out, they offer me the credit card. I know that they've got goals, right? So those are sales positions. And I think oftentimes people don't necessarily correlate that to a sales role. Also, if you've been involved on campus, there's fundraising for the school, right? And people that are calling alumni to gain funds for the school, or if you've been involved in a sorority or a fraternity, you're recruiting, or you're gaining scholarships for some of the folks on your team, like all of those things are sales. For student athletes, a ton of student athletes come to us and they're like, oh, I don't have any real work experience. I'm like, you've been working since like middle school to try to get a scholarship, to try to get playing time, to try to get your teammates to run a certain pass the way you want it run. All those things are sales. You just have to kind of learn how to sell your sales experience. So it doesn't have to be something on your resume that says sales associate. There's a ton of things that you've probably already done that definitely would kind of check that box for us.
Awesome. And here's one that a lot of students are probably very interested in, even if they're not saying so. What's the typical salary for a management trainee position or entry-level position?
Sure, that's a great question. So with us, it's $45,000. That's based on a 48-hour work week at this point in Dallas-Fort Worth. But like I said before, it's kind of rare for you to be a management trainee with us for all 12 months. Typically, folks are getting promoted to that next step up, which is a management assistant within 6 to 12 months, usually right around the 9-month mark is average for us. And our management assistants, if they were in that role for a whole year, would make $48,000. But it's very rare for you to be in that role for a year as well. Really, that's kind of the holding pattern. Like you're eligible to be an assistant manager, but maybe we don't have a position open right now, or maybe we do, but it's too far for you to drive. And so really 45 is where everybody starts, and we pay hourly plus overtime. It's not salary because it's not a 40-hour work week. And so we feel as an organization, it's most fair to pay you overtime so that if you go over those 48 hours that we expect you to work, that you're getting paid for it. So I always caution people, I think, I know at least for me when I was leaving college, I definitely wanted a salaried job. I felt like that was like the goal, is to get a salaried job. But I caution you, if you're going to be expected to work more than 40 hours, it usually pays in your favor for you to find a position that will pay you for the hours that you work versus just a flat salary. And then as you move up within our company, our average assistant manager makes between $53,000 and $55,000. So that's a balance of salary plus overtime. Plus commission. Once you become a leader in our company, then you start making commission on the bottom line of the business that you're helping to support. And then our branch managers make anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000, depending on the operation and the productivity of the location that they're helping to lead. And then all the other various leadership roles within the company, you can imagine all kind of go up, up, and up from there.
Great. And then I actually have a question, because you said that you don't outsource anything. So that means our students that want to be in, say, specifically accounting or specifically HR, and they don't want to lead a branch long term. Can you tell me a little bit about why they would consider enterprise instead of going straight into an accounting or HR position?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I can tell you this. accounting is the only other position in our company that we hire directly into. So we will hire a staff accountant straight out of school into that role. But again, we are a leadership organization. So we only are going to hire a staff accountant that we understand wants to be a controller one day. We want to make sure that those individuals want upward trajectory into the company in whatever role that is. So did want to say that about accounting, but for anything else, if you want to be in B2B sales, you want to be in marketing one day, why would you join enterprise instead of just going out and being in a B2B role? Well, I can tell you this. One thing is that we're 62 years old. We are a very stable company. We're a very conservative company, and we're a very employee-centric company. So this situation right now that we're in today is, it kind of breaks our hearts because we have always put our employees first. And so we never want to be in a position where we're putting our employees in a situation that they won't be successful. And I think I have a lot of friends who are in a lot of B2B sales roles, and, maybe the company they work for gets bought out by another company, and then they kind of clear everyone out and hire all new, or they bring in their people from the other company. Or, you see all the time that, if you work in kind of a product sales role, that product is no longer a product anymore because it's been replaced with something else. So then they have to hire new people to sell this new thing. So there's just not as much stability in some of those roles. Whereas in our company, what we like to say is you can have 6 or 7 different careers all working for one organization. You might be in sales and customer service and then management, and then maybe you do have an HR degree and you're like, look, I really want to be in that piece of the business. Great. Connect with the right people on your team, continue to learn, continue to train and develop in those avenues, and be a leader. And then at the end of the day, if you're a leader and you're a performer at enterprise, you're going to have any opportunity that you want. People are going to be fighting to get you on their team. So, attitude is everything. We tell our new hires that. I tell every student that I come in contact with. There's a ton of things in your life that you cannot control. This situation is a perfect example of that. But the one thing you can control every day, whether you're at work or you're connecting with someone or you're networking, is your attitude. And if you're positive and you are always looking for ways to improve yourself and those around you, then you're going to have opportunities. So if you have an HR degree, if you have a marketing degree, what have you, I assure you, Enterprise is a fantastic company to work for. You might utilize that degree. You might fall in love with something entirely different. We have folks on our HR team who have finance degrees or microbiology degrees because they studied it because someone told them to study it, or maybe their parents studied it, or maybe they just really liked that professor, so they changed their major to continue to take classes from that professor, or they thought that degree was going to pay more. There's 100 different reasons to choose, your course of study in college. But what I tell you is the more adaptable and flexible you can be when you join a company, to figure out what it is that you're really meant to do, and where you can be best suited in a company. Typically, the leaders of that team or mentors that you connect with in that company, they'll steer you the right direction.
Thank you. And I have another question. What kind of professional development opportunities are available for people once they become employees?
Sure. Great question. So obviously by title, it is a management training program. So it is endless professional development. So what we say is typically 95 to 97% of what you'll learn in our program, that's designed to be, like I said, 6 to 12 months, is going to be learning it by doing it. So we give every new hire at Enterprise a roadmap. And it takes you month by month, things you should be learning, things you should be accomplishing. It helps you kind of set out year so that you don't fall behind. And then it gives you that so that you can tell when you're on the curve, maybe if you've fallen behind a little bit, how to get caught back up. So you have that roadmap, which is self-paced, and your branch manager helps you sit down and have a one-on-one meeting at least once a month, most of the time twice a month, to talk about your goals and things you need to learn, whether it's balancing the cash box, whether it's learning how to deactivate an oil change in the system, whether it's helping to delete a vehicle that's been sold to an auction. All those things you'll learn throughout the year, and it's all spelled out for you in your roadmap. So we have some folks that come in and work way ahead. You know, I'll take them out for their 2-month lunch and be like, how's your roadmap? And they're like, I'm on month 7. It's like, okay, overachiever. So you can kind of work at your own pace for sure. But those individuals who work way ahead and then they achieve their personal performance goals, those are the ones who can get promoted the fastest. So, you know, whether it's our company or another company, take the bulls by the horn. You know, if you're given the opportunity to work ahead and learn more, certainly do that. So that's, like I said, 95 to 97% of the learning is going to be from your branch managers and your management team and the management trainees around you. But the other 3 to 5% is going to be actual classroom style training. So, you know, you have a full week right at the beginning where we're teaching you about our practices, our processes, our culture, you know, the products and services that you're going to be selling and advising customers on. So you get all that in the first week, and then we have you come back in a few months for a touch point to do some more advanced sales training and some operations training and some risk management training. And then from there, you come back in at about 6 months because we're preparing you for that management qualification interview. So it's a deep dive into our financial statement and our operations because we're really trying to get you ready to be an assistant branch manager. And then once you become an assistant manager, you have a series of trainings because now you have new roles and new responsibilities in the operation. And then same thing as a branch manager. You have a series of trainings that you go through once you attain that level. And then if you move into any other division or department, you'll have a series of trainings once you move into those roles. So when I became a recruiter, I went to St. Louis, that's our corporate headquarters, and went through a whole kind of recruiting boot camp there. And then my manager had another roadmap that her and I worked on for a year after I was in that role. So tons of professional development. It's what we do every day. Like I said before, or at least I say it all the time, we are a leadership organization, and renting cars is kind of our side business, but that is really what we're known for, obviously. But we are a leadership organization. We are hiring leaders and promoting and developing them.
Great. And I actually also wanted to ask a question. Some of our students are close to graduating, some of them are not. And I know y'all also have an internship program. Is that more for freshmen and sophomores or juniors and seniors? And how's that different from the management trainee program?
Yeah, great question. So our internship is an opportunity for rising seniors. So it's typically the summer between junior and senior year. And it's typically 10 weeks and it's fully paid and it is a full-time opportunity. So about 40 hours a week for 10 weeks. And what we're doing is basically giving you the first 10 weeks of our management training program. It's almost identical. So all of the training, all of the responsibilities, the engagement that a new management trainee with our company would receive, that is what our interns get. So you have marketing responsibilities, you're learning about all of our other divisions and departments in the company, you're helping customers on the front lines, you're doing all those things I just said, deactivating oil changes and learning how to manage the fleet of cars. And really you are working side by side with the whole team, just as any other management trainee would. So the main difference is that it's temporary, right? Because it's an internship. But really the intention of our internship is to offer you a full-time role at the end of the internship to come back as a management trainee when you graduate. So on average, we hire back about 60 to 70% of our interns into our management training program when they graduate. And, you know, the other 30 to 40% are probably a mixed bag of whether or not they performed as interns and or whether they accepted an offer somewhere else. But really that's our intention. And a lot of our interns who intern close to school end up staying on with us part-time during their senior year, because everything you do in our internship works towards that promotion to assistant manager. So, you know, your first 10 weeks coupled with if you work part-time in the fall and or the spring, we have interns that graduate in May. They take their management qualification interview in June and they're assistant managers by July. And so it really is a fast track to promotion with us.
Great, thank you. That's really great information that we can share with our students. Oh,
Sure.
I just got one more question in. What's your internship program going to look like this summer?
So we did postpone our internship this summer. Most of those offers we had made in the fall, so it broke our hearts. But like I said before, we have every intention of just postponing the offer and offering it during fall and spring depending on a student's availability. And so we actually had a number of interns that had offers who go to University of Oklahoma or Arkansas. And so I am working with my counterparts in those territories to still honor the internship for them near their schools. So we're doing everything in our power to still give them the internship opportunity. It wouldn't be what we would want it to be for our students this summer. Our business is not operating the way it normally operates, obviously. So we don't have customers coming into our branches for the safety of our employees. So what we're doing is typically just delivering cars to people's homes. And so that wouldn't give our interns the experience that they would need in order to determine whether or not this is going to be a long-term career for them. So we just felt it was best to offer them the opportunity when they can really get what we've promised to them during the interview process.
For sure, I completely understand. Oh, and here's another question. So what's the process of getting into the internship program?
Sure. So it's the same as our management training program. So we have an online application process. It's shut down temporarily, but it'll be back up soon. And you would apply online or obviously connect with us on campus. And then we start our interview process. And it looks almost identical to a management trainee. The only difference is we don't have that last final step where you would meet with the regional vice president. We wouldn't have that step until we were determining if we were offering you the full-time management trainee position at the end of the summer. So you just still have the phone interview, the interview with the recruiter, and then the interview at the branch with the team and the hiring area manager. So the interview process is essentially the same. And the application process is the same. And we're looking for all the same things because, again, the only thing that should be missing is your bachelor's degree. We want you to have the same core competencies, the same interest in a long-term career, the same ability and ambition to be in leadership.
Great, thank you so much. And so as we are kind of wrapping into our final 10 minutes, I am going to just kind of repeat what I said at the beginning for anybody that joined late. This session is being recorded. So if you had to come in, say 10, 15, 20 minutes late, we are going to have a recording that will be available. I know if you are in Dr. Richardson's class, he is going to be posting that on to his Canvas page. I'm going to get him this file, and then we may post it on Facebook as well. So if you follow us on Facebook, you'll be able to access it there. And if anybody has any other questions, feel free to type them in. If not, Jade, are there any final comments that you'd like to make as we wrap up?
Sure. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I absolutely love connecting with Tarleton students, and you really have one of the best career services department in the land. So you're really, really fortunate, and I encourage you to utilize that resource as much as humanly possible while you're still there. First. Secondly, I'd say this is the time to be brushing up on your own professional development. I know we talked about it at the start of the call, but spend time on your LinkedIn profile right now. You've got time. So make sure your profile picture is professional. Make sure, you have a really good objective kind of listed at the top as to who you are and what you're looking for. Make sure you start following organizations that you have interest in applying with. That's one of the first things we look at. If we pull you up on LinkedIn and you've applied at Enterprise, I really want to see that you're following Enterprise on LinkedIn, right? So make sure that you're following some of those companies or, industries that you might have interest in first. And then also I'd say that, again, I know we talked about it already, but continue to build your network at this time. If there's people that you can connect with through, situations like this, I'm happy to connect with you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or email me if I can help you with anything, but take people up on their offers right now. Like I said, brush up that resume, those virtual interview skills, really use this time to continue to build your brand and to continue to build your network. And then last bit of advice for you is do not be discouraged by this. Our country has gone through, dips and climbed mountains many times. We've gone through several recessions, and absolutely do not get discouraged by this. I can tell you there's going to be a high unemployment rate. But if you are aware that you're going to be entering the job market soon, within the next few months, you're ahead of the curve. You have this opportunity to continue to connect and build your brand with people. Whereas somebody who might be laid off, they might have more experience than you, but they probably aren't planning to be laid off. And so they aren't doing the groundwork to connect with recruiters, to connect with organizations, to start building that network. So hopefully you're ahead of them, and really utilize your resources to the best of your ability while you can.
Great, thank you, Jade. And we did have one final question come in that I think is a great note to wrap up on. This question is from a student that says there's a lot of great information for new graduates. What about our older or non-traditional students, especially if there are graduate students, not undergraduate?
Yep. Great question. So I'd say that nothing's really different. I would say to continue to build your professional development. For an untraditional student, I love when we get a untraditional student into the interview process and they try to downplay their experience. And I'm like, what? That's your competitive advantage. I want you to talk all about your experience. I say, the best advice I can give you is to be flexible right now, and if you've had your heart set on a specific job, maybe you got a bachelor's degree, you entered the workforce, and now you've gone back for a graduate degree because you wanted this one type of specific job. You might have to be a little bit more flexible right now as to positions that, you're willing to consider, but there are going to be so many positions open in the next few months. Yes, we are seeing that there's kind of a downturn in that people are lowering the number of people on their team, right? We're seeing downsizing, but there will be an uptick for certain. And there's some industries who haven't been impacted at all. So, if you had your heart set on, being a executive with BMW, and maybe BMW isn't selling as many cars or building as many cars right now, well, you know what? Maybe you should consider something in administration in the healthcare industry right now. There's tons of organizations in different industries that are going to have opportunity. So if you're the best candidate, you're going to get hired. So spend this time becoming the best candidate that you can. And again, be as flexible as you can when you're out there looking for different opportunities. We search for keywords when we're searching for resumes on LinkedIn and Indeed. And I'd encourage you all to search for keywords instead of a specific job title. Maybe you search for leadership or management or sales or marketing instead of a specific job title or a specific company, because that'll bring you a whole different level of opportunities that you might be a fantastic fit for.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Jade, for coming. You gave us so much great information in this past hour. It was great to have you. So thank you so much. Students, again, this is going to be posted online later if you want to come back and watch it again. Thank you all so much for coming and attending, and we really appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great afternoon.
Yes, thank you. It was great to meet all of you virtually.
Thanks, Jade.
Thank you.
Thank you.